Hello and welcome. I am your host, Ryan Muncie, and you are listening to the House of Strength podcast. I want to welcome you in, and today's guest is Chris Lopez, also known as the Jersey Beast. Chris runs Jersey Strength Pit in Jackson, New Jersey, and Chris, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I know that you guys run, or you run Jersey Strength Pit a little bit differently than the traditional gym. So I know you guys are real exclusive. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do, and who your clientele is, and what's going on up there in the Jersey Strength Pit.
Yeah, man. So my main clientele right now is high school and middle school athletes. That right now is the bread and butter. And I basically train them to get bigger and stronger and faster for their sport. Jackson's a pretty big area in Jersey, and there's 2 high schools in Jackson, a couple middle schools in Jackson. So the athlete population here is huge. So that's pretty much my concentration. We also train adults here as well, and we kind of take a hybrid approach to training. We don't do a lot of things you might see at other gyms like this. We do lift in a bodybuilding fashion, more or less, but it's hybrid in the sense that we do incorporate performance as well. So people aren't getting big and blocky and slow. They're putting on some muscle, but the performance is there as well. The strength is there, conditioning is there. So
that's really cool. So I can see behind you, you're sitting in the gym. So if people are listening in their cars, they're not going to be able to see this, but if you're on the blog and you see the video, then you're seeing what I'm seeing. And I see dumbbells and kegs and Swiss bars and bands. I don't see what I associate with bodybuilding. I don't see a leg press or lat pull downs or that kind of thing. So when you say you guys do a bodybuilding hybrid style, how are you accomplishing that in the setting that you're in?
Sure. So my gym is very small. It's about 1,000 square feet total. So that includes the bathroom and that includes my office area. So there's about 700 square feet usable space. If you've been in a regular gym, you guys see machines all over the place. We just don't have the space for machines. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of machines, but also because from a performance perspective, you get more benefit from using free weights. Most people know that. And in a group setting, it's easier to incorporate group workouts with free weights rather than have somebody sit on a machine. And it's more taxing on the body too,
Right.
So you hit multiple muscle groups, you get the conditioning in. You're not sitting on a machine doing, preacher curls on a machine. You're kind of moving a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean that's a really big thing to keep in mind when you're working with performance-based athletes in the gym, that we want to be able to control. We want them to be able to control their body in space and produce force, without having to rely on sitting in a perfectly mechanically advantageous position on a leg press. So I think that's a really cool approach. Do your athletes enjoy that? I'm sure that they get some
Absolutely.
pretty cool results too, right?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. Machines do have their place. I'm not knocking. I don't want people writing me hate mail. But machines have their place.
It's a tool in the toolbox. Who are you training? Why are you training them?
Exactly. It depends on the person.
Right.
Absolutely. So.
I guess that kind of covers what it means and what you're doing when you say bodybuilding hybrid. But I guess how is that different from the traditional performance training facilities? We'll take House of Strength and what we do, where I'm not saying we're different from you guys or anything, but the stereotypical training muscles versus movements. What is different where you guys are?
Well, most coaches know you don't necessarily have to be big to be strong, right? You can be very strong and not be huge. That's kind of, and vice versa. Some people think that the biggest guys are the strongest guys, and that's not the case, We like to find that happy medium, because in my experience, in sports like football or rugby, extra muscle mass does help. But if you could take that muscle mass and add speed to it and add strength to it, then you have a hell of an athlete, you know. Obviously, depending on the sport, I'm not going to have a tennis player bulk up, you know what I mean? But on the power sports, hockey, football, some wrestlers.
Yeah, there's certainly an advantage to being able to have enough mass to kind of absorb some force, and I mean, it's almost like putting on body armor.
Right, right.
So what are some of the, like, let's say you have a particular movement that you have those guys doing. What exactly are you doing or having them do that's going to help them put on muscle that, like you said, maybe the tennis player wouldn't do?
Right. So typically the way I break the workouts up, there's boards behind me. There's nothing on them, I didn't write them up yet. But we typically have 3 levels of athletes here. So we have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. Level 1 is pretty much new athletes coming in. I put them all through the level 1 to kind of see where they're at. A lot of body weight, and that's pretty much a full total body workout. Okay. Level 2 is more, a little bit more weight involved. So you're using dumbbells. You might be using medicine balls. Level 3 is more of the older athletes, juniors and seniors. You know, those guys are doing the bar squats, they're doing bar deadlifts and that sort of thing. But it's not so much about the movements, because we know all the movements are based off of each other. I mean, you look at any training program, everything's either a squat, deadlift, a row, a chest press, or an overhead press to some degree, you know. And everything's varies off of that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's only so many movement patterns.
Right. So these coaches who tell you that their stuff is cutting edge, they're full of shit. But anyway, so it's more about the programming of the rep ranges and the set ranges. So maybe on our muscle building week, we'll do a little bit more higher volume, or not on like explosive movements, but on your squats. Maybe on your rows, maybe on your bench. So typically for strength, people say, you know, 4 or 5 sets, low reps. We might do, you know, 6 sets or 8 sets of 8 reps with a moderate weight and just concentrate on the contraction, as opposed to being explosive or lower reps and heavier weight and concentrating on strength. So
cool. So you're going to get, if we looked at the total volume of that workout, then in that muscle building workout, you're going to get a little bit higher volume, and that's going to, you know, increase the total mechanical load that those muscles have been subjected to. It's going to increase the time under tension for those muscles, and that's what's actually stimulating the body to lay down new muscle tissue, as opposed to simply making those muscles that were worked stronger to handle that load next time.
Right. And the good thing about it is you're using compound movements. So we very, very rarely do isolation here. I might prescribe it to somebody who needs it, but all the movements that we do here are compound. So it's all based on your squats, all based on your deadlift. It's going to help you get stronger because you're doing those compound movements. And at the very least, it's going to maintain your strength. So when we hit our strength week next, you know, the strength is still there or increased.
So I guess, let me ask you this too then.
Sure.
With those athletes, then, are you working on teaching them, so like on the muscle building week, would you want them to keep constant tension on that target muscle, as opposed to in maybe a performance week, or I'm not sure how you break it down, but, you know, talk a little bit about the difference of those particular contractions, instead of just trying to move weight from point A to point B to, like you said, feeling the muscle, focusing on it,
right,
keeping that constant tension.
So if it was strictly a bodybuilding program, you're concentrating just on contraction. Some bodybuilders really don't care about strength at all. So, you know, it's a fine line. We're still training for performance. So yes, we concentrate on the contraction, but we don't do it in a way where it's going to just build muscle. You know what I mean? We don't do super slow reps or that sort of thing. Yes, we want to damage the muscle fiber, but we also don't want to hinder their performance as well. So it's kind of a fine line. My objective for the athletes is to basically feel the contraction, make sure they know what muscles they're using when they're working out, and at a moderate rep speed. You don't want to go too slow, because when you're an athlete, you want to be able to move decent amounts of weight quickly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we still concentrate on that. That's the main goal is performance. So
Right, right, and I think that's where most performance training is centered in that it's that force production and then the rate of force production. How quickly can you do that? We've covered that a lot with a few of our other guests. So, and that's another reason that we wanted to have you on the podcast was that there is a slightly different approach, and we can talk about something a little bit different than what every other podcast has kind of touched on. So you mentioned two things in there that I want to kind of elaborate on is one, you said that yes, you do want to damage muscle fibers. I know a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, wait a minute, why do I want to do that? So kind of run through, let's explain to people that may not be aware that when you lift, regardless of how you lift or what your goals are, that you're tearing muscle down, and the idea is bodybuilding, that
right.
your body super compensates and is better able to handle that load the next time it sees it.
Right. Yeah. So from a muscle building perspective, you kind of have to damage fibers to some degree, and you even do it when you're just training for strength. I mean, but when you're building muscle, your body needs to repair those muscle fibers and, like you said, super compensate and kind of overdo it. So the next time you go lift, or over the course of a few weeks, you're putting on mass. Now that only really happens if you're eating enough, and I find that a lot of the athletes in here either eat terrible or they don't eat enough, and they complain that they don't put on muscle, and they have to eat. I mean, you're only gonna put on muscle if you eat.
Well,
so.
you work perfectly into, like, I'm sitting here and as you're talking, I'm writing notes. I'm like, all right, I want to ask about this. So the nutrition side of it, the recovery. I mean, when we go into a workout, a gym, whatever, we come out, and we're beaten up. We've kind of dug a hole, and now we've got to recover from it and super compensate. What are you doing nutritionally with your guys, and how do you kind of coach them on that? And what's the Jersey Strength Pit way?
Well, when I first started, I went to Staples and I bought like 100 notebooks. Like I bought every notebook they had. The woman at the counter thought I was nuts, right? And I gave all the kids a notebook and I said, I want you to bring these in every time you come, and I'm going to check them, right? It sounded good on paper, right?
Yeah.
And what wound up happening was, over the course of a few weeks, nothing ever changed, and I would talk to them. The reality is with high school and middle school athletes is they're kind of at the mercy of what their parents buy. So it's very tough to get them on the right plan. I mean, I've written plans for kids. They kind of half follow it. My biggest suggestion, if they want to put on muscle mass, is to replace a couple meals with maybe a couple protein shakes. At least get the extra protein in. It's very tough to do because and surprisingly enough, a lot of the parents and a lot of the adults don't know about nutrition, or what they do know and what they think is right is actually wrong. When I was raised, my mother thought that what we were eating was healthy,
right.
Like Cheerios and Raisin Bran, but it's awful,
Yeah.
But
that's I mean, we're kind of in the same boat. I think everybody's in the same boat who's working with athletes in that age range that you talk about. That's a really good point. They're kind of, I don't want to say at the mercy, but high school, middle school kids are not going to the grocery store. They're not cooking meals for the most part. So, they are. It's kind of, you've got to get to the parents. So, we held a nutrition seminar on a Saturday, and a lot of times at our place we've got the kids at one time and we've got the adults in another class. So, we've got the whole family unit in there, and we're able to kind of stress the importance of nutrition and what they should be eating to the parents, and then the parents start making that change, then it kind of trickles down. But like you said, with the younger kids, supplementing what they're doing, whether it's with whole food snacks or actual supplements or whatever, so that they're able to recover, and put on that size that they want is, that's a really important thing. I think it's really cool too, because, I've noticed that it gets the younger athletes taking responsibility for what they're putting in their body to start to become aware of it, and to educate them, because, like you said, most people are actually trying to do good or do well with nutrition, but the information that's out there in the mass media is, unfortunately, it's wrong. So I'm right there with you, man. That's cool. You know, another thing, when you're talking about the bodybuilding style approach, and you mentioned kind of lifting tempos, do you guys use tempo counts like, 3, 0, 1 or anything like that, or no?
I do in my head when I watch things, but I don't relay to them because it's hard for them to grasp.
Okay.
But the groups are small enough to where I can kind of keep an eye on people, and I'll pull them aside and kind of say, okay, a little slower, and I kind of time it in my head. But athletes, what I find with athletes too is that as they're always rushing through the workout, they're always like trying to blow through it. They think the faster they get through it, the better off it's going to be.
Yep.
And it's like I got to tell them, like, relax, like think a little bit while you're working out, so you kind of know why you're here,
Yeah.
But they blow through it and rep speed and sets and no break times and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And if we've talked about this on the podcast, I don't remember who it was, but let's really dig into that. Because we noticed the same thing. And so, I'm lucky enough to where when House of Strength started, we were at a place called Iron Sports here in Roanoke. And it was a powerlifting and strongman facility. So I got to kind of watch a few power lifters and I've read, on T Nation and Elite Fitness and, met some of the best power lifters in the world. And they always talk about, getting your mind right and even a set of 1 or a set of 3 reps, you're completely focused on that and you have no idea what's going on around you. You're completely present in the moment, right here, right now. The only thing that you're even aware of is the bar, the weight, your body. And I think that's a really important concept for people to start to learn in the weight room, because it can translate to, when you're on the field as an athlete, the only thing that you're focused on is, where are your teammates, what play is going on. You're not worried about, oh, well, is it raining or what's the wind doing or, who's yelling at me up in the stands. And, like you said, it will give you better results in the gym. We got a real bad delay. You there?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Okay. So, what kind of rest periods are you prescribing, and how are you kind of making sure that your guys make the most use of that rest period?
It depends on the level. So the lower levels, like level 1, they're not really using a lot of weight, like, because they're usually like I have a couple 5th graders, mostly 6th or 7th graders. They're doing a lot of body weight and a lot of suspension training, like TRX and that sort of thing.
Right.
And with them, as long as their form is good, I don't really worry about rest periods with them, because that keeps the intensity up. The exercises are pretty or fairly simple and easy. So if they don't want to take a break and they want to keep blowing through it, as long as the form's good, they're good to go. With the older kids, it depends on what we're doing. If we're doing explosive movements, obviously the reps are a little lower and maybe the sets are a little higher, and we'll take a decent amount of rest in between each set. The barbell work on the strength weeks, your bench press, incline press, your squats, they're very taxing. So they usually take a 1 to 2 minute breaks in between those sets. I think without even knowing it. And it kind of works out because I have 2 racks in here and they help spot each other. So while one guy is training, the other guy's spotting, and it kind of works out that he gets his rest period while he's spotting.
Gotcha.
It seems to work.
So,
and kind of in the middle level 2, it's kind of depending on what they're doing that day. But the rest period, I try and stress it, like, take your time, don't blow through it. And it's just, I don't know where they get the mentality from. I have no idea where they get that. Yeah. But it's like, go, and it's not necessarily benefiting them,
Yeah. We notice that with adults too, and I think like you said, with some of the when you're doing higher reps or the bodybuilding type or the barbell work weeks, like you said, and if you're doing a set of 10 squats or something like that, you're going to take a metabolic hit, and you're going to have your heart rate's going to be through the roof. You're going to be breathing hard. That's going to force you to rest. But so like when you start to, like if you have an adult for the first time who's doing speed or power movements, or your athletes, and they're working in that 1 to 3 or that 4 rep range or something really low where, metabolically or cardiovascularly, they're like, all right, I can go, I'm ready to go. But they haven't learned yet that, hey, my nervous system is not ready to produce maximal output again.
Right.
How are you teaching them that, or what would you do to kind of educate somebody on that?
I just tell them to stop. I walk over and I rack the bar for them. I'm like, relax, and I just tell them that they need the rest periods. They need it. It depends. You like you said, if you're training for strength, you need to rest. Your body needs to. It just took a hit on a heavy set of presses or a heavy set of squats. You need to rest. You need to kind of get that ATP back in your muscles so you can hit that next set. You know what I mean? Yep. It's just the way it works. Yeah.
So that's what I was looking for. I was trying to get you to go there. So, you're using a pathway, or they would be using a pathway that our body's only got enough of that energy substrate to last for 10 to 12 seconds, and it takes 30 to 45 seconds for it to regenerate and get back to ready and go, and that's what they're training, and that's why you don't do every 10 seconds for power output or something like that. So
right.
Well, cool, man. I think we've kind of covered a lot of that. I know you just got married, so congratulations on that.
Sorry, ladies.
How is your training or all that different, now that you're married, or is it?
It's much different. I'm kind of, I'm 30 and I feel so beat up, man. My early 20s, all I did was bodybuilding, and that's all I cared about. And now it's like, I still do it to a degree, but I can't do it like I used to do it. There's other priorities involved now, man. I was telling somebody yesterday that my weekends are now spent at Home Depot or Bed Bath & Beyond, and that's pretty much it.
It's like old school. I don't know if I'll have time. Right? No, but that's really cool because as you've gotten older, or your recovery is not what it was when you were in your early 20s. So you as a lifter have to place more emphasis on that. And I think that's a very valuable lesson to learn as a coach, because now when we've got our high school and middle school athletes, we can say, look, there's a better way, so that you're not as beat up at 25 or 30, as maybe people were 20 years ago. So what kind of things are you doing at your age to speed up your recovery and get back in the gym and continue lifting at that high level?
I've kind of found out that my sweet spot for lifting is like 3 days a week if I hit it hard. I don't really like to train just to train. Like every time I work out, I like to keep the intensity really high.
Right.
But the older you get, you can only do that so much. When you're younger, 20 years old, you can go 5-6 days a week. But as you get older, you got to be a little smarter about it. And every single time, if I push it past 3 days and I hit 4 days, I start to get injured. My shoulder starts bothering me, my knee starts to bother me. So it's just a matter of kind of not really going into the gym. You need to go in with a plan, and you need to know your body, and you have to kind of figure out what's going to work for you. Because if you don't, you're just going to be running in circles. If you're training, you should have goals. You want to get better. You either want to get bigger, you want to get stronger or leaner, and you kind of have to keep those goals in mind. But you have to do it according to what your body's telling you. You can't. People who push through the pain because they think it's hardcore, it's so stupid. I thought that was amazing and awesome when I was younger, but now I'm just like, screw that stuff, man. Before the wedding, I took like 2 weeks off. I didn't work out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I just started back up this week, and I'm like hurting. But
No, that's a really good point. I think that mentality very much like what we were talking about earlier, where people want to go go go. They want to you've heard that no pain no gain for so long that people just think that that's how it has to be, and that's not how it has to be. And you shouldn't chase soreness. People have this belief that if I'm not sore after a workout, it wasn't a good workout, and
Oh man, I had a woman come in probably about a year ago, and she was in pretty good shape, and it was her first time here. I put her through a quick workout, and it was a tough workout. And I called her the next day to see how she was making out, and she's like, "Well, I'm not really sore." And I'm like, everybody has this mentality that they need to be like either vomiting or like have busted up knees or be like in a wheelchair for days after their workout. Like that's completely wrong. Like it doesn't have to be that way.
yeah.
But people, I don't know. It's the mentality of I don't know. It's just the way people think.
I don't know. I guess everybody wants to be like Rocky. They want to feel
Yeah.
like they got destroyed and then they came back from it. And
Right.
it's the American way, right?
That's it.
But every time I hear that, I think back to like one of the first times that I kind of learned that lesson was I've got to give credit to Christian Thibodeau from T Nation, where
Right.
he's like, don't chase soreness. I can hit you with a baseball bat and you'll be sore, but that doesn't mean you got bigger, faster, stronger, or any of that stuff. So
Right.
I've never hit anybody with a baseball bat, but I have used that line quite a few times.
It makes sense, and it makes sense. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the same goes for hard workouts. You see a lot of gyms that preach that their workouts are hard and they're hardcore. Like, look, I can have you do 500 burpees, and that's a hard workout. But is there really any benefit to it? I can make you do 10 rounds of whatever. It's going to destroy you, and it's hard. But what's the point?
And that's where so many coaches and gyms and facilities give the strength and conditioning or the fitness world kind of a bad name, where any idiot can make you tired, but not everybody can make you better or
Right.
healthier or stronger or faster, and that's what you're ultimately seeking.
You know who has that mentality is a lot of the parents of athletes. I don't know if you see that too.
Yeah.
You train a lot of athletes, right? So I don't.
Yeah, the parents are, work them hard, or make sure they come home tired.
And especially like the day you see some of these wrestlers, right? They come in and they have to cut weight before the next day. They got to drop 6 pounds for a tournament or something the next day.
Yeah.
And they're like, drill them into the ground. I'm like, you want them to do well tomorrow, right? So they'll come in and I'll put them through like a recovery workout. Listen, if you didn't cut weight and you got to cut 6 pounds before tomorrow, you waited too long.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to destroy you so you go in, on the borderline of getting injured, or you're too sore to perform at your top level. Like that doesn't make sense.
That's right. That's the old what is it? The 7 P's. That proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And,
Right.
You can't wait till the last minute, and it's like you said. If you had driven that wrestler into the ground, they would be worthless the next day.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. That's a really good thing.
So all you parents listening to this.
Yes.
Coach.
Yep. Well, cool, man. So, if people want to get more of the Jersey Beast, where can they find you, Mr. Lopez?
I have a blog, jerseybeast.tv, all kinds of cool videos up there. And then if you're ever in Central Jersey or you're listening to this and you're in Jersey, come stop by the gym. I pretty much live here, so I'm here all the time. I'm right in Jackson. It's called the Jersey Strength Pit, and you can visit jerseystrengthpit.com.
So we'll have the show notes up on the blog, like we said earlier, and we'll have links to all that stuff, links to the blog, links to YouTube channel, all that stuff. So before we let you go, all of our guests answer 2 questions, or maybe it's 1 question with a part A and a part B.
Oh, you didn't warn me about this part.
Yep. I couldn't let you prepare for this. This is off the cuff.
What's up?
So you get 2 pieces of advice. One is on topic.
Uh-huh.
So of all the things that we talked about, if somebody only retains or gets one tip, what's the one thing you want people to take away from this?
The one thing.
Yep.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the most valuable thing is just be smart with your training. There's a lot of gyms that aren't smart with training, and they just slap workouts together and make them hard. And just be smart about it. You know, you gotta, like you said, you have to make sure that there's some benefit to what you're doing, or it's leading you forward in some way towards your goal. So just be smart. Listen to your body.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the difference between training and working out.
Right. There was an article somebody posted. I don't remember who it was, but they said you can either be really good at working out or you can train. You know,
Yep.
you can be good at exercising or you can train. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so part two of that same question is off topic. You know, if you could impart one piece of wisdom to our listeners, you know, if you get a chance to give them one piece of advice to live, you know, their authentic life and you know, just kick more ass, what would that be?
Just kind of go through your day and stop and think the reason why you're doing things. And I feel like a lot of people go through their day, especially, and I was guilty of it before I had the gym. I had a regular job and I would just go in because that was what I was supposed to do. And, you know, I would go through my day and it was a routine, and I never actually stopped and thought about what I was doing or why I was doing it. When I actually did, it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to who I was. It didn't make sense to what I was about. So I left. But I think people don't realize that they have to stop and kind of think of where they're at and think of why they're doing what they're doing and what the reasoning is. Is it your family? Is it you know, because it's leading to some better life that you want? Or is it something that's wasting your time? If it's wasting your time, get rid of it. Nobody's locked into anything. And I tell this to people all the time. I talk to people who want to better themselves, and they want to better their situation, or they want a gym, or they want something, and you ask them, well, or you just tell them to go do it, and they're like, well, I can't right now. I have bills, and I have this, and I have that. Everybody's got bills, you know. Everybody has responsibilities, but sometimes you just have to kind of man up and kind of grab your balls and go for it. You know, but you have to think that you're capable of it first. You know, you have to figure out why you're doing something first before you get to that level. But don't go through your day like a zombie, and there's too many zombies out today. You just got to kind of think a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Don't be a zombie.
Don't be a zombie.
I don't want to understate what you just said, man. That's awesome. That was awesome. So, well, Chris, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Appreciate you spending some time with us, and I hope everybody listening enjoyed it. Make sure you check out houseofstrengthgym.com for the blog version of this, to get all the show notes, you get all the links to go visit Chris, get more of him, and that's it. We will see you next time.